Okay, welcome to the December 10th meeting of the governing body. We'll call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilman Duncan, who will provide the invocation, stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. As I mentioned last week, members of my family have begrudgingly agreed to come this month to provide the invocation. My wife and son were here last week. It's a small reminder in this month of December for the importance of celebrating our families, whatever they may look like. Tonight I have my two brothers here, Ryan Duncan and Jerome Martin. Jerome is an award-winning bodybuilder and a personal trainer who owns AAO Training right here in Topeka. Ryan is a chef and food professional who is the general manager of hospitality for the University of Kansas Athletics. And no, he does not get me free tickets to anything. Don't ask. As I mention often, I represent the district that we grew up in. We lived on Burnett Road, right near the mighty Shunganunga, with Crestview Rec Center easy to walk to. Jerome and I are alums of McEachran Elementary. Ryan went to Bishop Elementary, which is no longer open as a school. We are all French Falcons, and for a period of 2 years, we were all at Topeka West High School together, which was fine for us, but I know there are teachers and staff out there who have other stories. It's nice to have them here this evening. The past few months have been challenging for our family, as we did lose 3 important family members, Mother Joyce, Grandpa Hal, and Grandma Nana. But having each other has provided us important support for one another and our families during this time. But on a more upbeat note, Jerome is a veteran of the U.S. military, having served in the Army. Ryan became a grandfather in July of this year. And I am the only brother who does not have any tattoos, for those of you who are wondering. I'll end with this note before I turn it over to them. For those who don't know us and find out we are brothers, there is one obvious question they all have.
What one?
It's understandable, even though we now live in a world that is more diverse and comprised of families that are different in nature and brought together by the most unique of circumstances. But I will address it here tonight. The answer to your question is this. I don't know why I'm the best looking of the 3 of us. It just worked out that way. And with that, I will turn it over to Ryan and Jerome for the invocation.
Thank you for having us tonight. Would you guys please bow your head for a short prayer? Each of us is a minority with respect to something. It might be race, religion, orientation, nationality, or any other way we may be regarded as different. Each of us is also a part of some majority. It is when we wear our majority hats that we need to be most mindful of how we treat others. We must pledge our best efforts to help one another and work on behalf of all of our citizens and residents. What divides us is not so much our differences, but the degree of commitment we have to creating equal opportunities for all people. We were gathered today with shared belief that we must treat fellow human beings with respect and dignity. Amen.
My brothers and I grew up in this community. We have family in this community and have lifelong friends throughout Topeka. The decisions of this body have impacted our lives and the lives of those we know. As you work together on behalf of all who live in Topeka, may you gain strength from one another through reason and compassion. Every day presents a struggle for some members of our community, but this time of year is especially challenging for many. May we all keep that in mind. And may you be reminded that as our elected leaders, we look to you for support and guidance. As Harry Truman once reminded us, it's remarkable how much you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. Thank you, and amen.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a special treat this evening. Councilman Kell has invited some guests this evening, Cub Scout Pack 3010, and they are going to provide the Pledge of Allegiance for us. If they'll step forward so everyone can get a good look at them while they're here. They can come up here. You can come up here on the dais too. They may want to get some pictures. Oh, they're probably loud. They're probably loud. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Okay. I will leave it to the Scoutmasters to lead us off.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
They asked some really good questions also in between the meetings there.
Like, why are you the best looking council member?
At least you acknowledge it.
Okay. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller. Here. Valdivia Aquila.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Hofer.
Here.
All right, we have 10 yes, 10 present.
To the President, we'll move on to item number 2, the appointments. Madam Clerk.
A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Bill Nager to the Board of Mechanical Examiners for a term ending December 31, 2026. B is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Lee Evans to the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District Advisory Board for the unexpired term ending December 31, 2025. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Steve Mohan to the Board of Building and Fire Appeals for a term ending December 31, 2026. D is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Michael Opadan to the Metropolitan Topeka Airport Authority Board for a term ending November 30, 2027.
Okay. We've heard the appointments as read. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Councilman Kell, second by Councilman Miller. To call the roll, please.
Council members Kell,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
and Banks.
Yes.
All right, we have 9 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried, and all those present whose names were just read, I see Mr. Nager in the audience. There's a couple who did not respond, but those who are present whose names were read as being appointed, would they please stand so that we can acknowledge your willingness to serve the city in this capacity, and thank you for your time. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 3. Madam Clerk.
3 is domestic violence prosecution update.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Bridget Markey, our Associate Attorney, will lead us through this item and answer any questions we may have. Thank you.
Is it okay? And then mine is blinking through. Okay. Good evening, governing body. Thank you so much for hearing me out today. My name is Bridget Markey. I'm an assistant city attorney for the city of Topeka. I handle all the domestic violence prosecution that happens through the city. And so I'll just very briefly go through how cases begin for the city of Topeka when it comes to domestic violence. In short, there's a lot of more information that I could supply than what I'm about to say, but basically there's usually an investigation into some kind of domestic disturbance, or somebody can come in and report an incident to the Topeka Police Department, and then TPD will carry out an investigation, make probable cause determinations. If they're on scene with the parties, they may have to make a mandatory arrest. And then there's also some cases that get referred to my office for me to just review that have not resulted in some sort of mandatory arrest. And then, so from there, there's a system of bond and bond conditions being set, arraignment dates being given to individuals, and certain considerations of contact with the victim, things like that. So on my end, I may be amending certain kinds of paperwork, I may be filing paperwork, and ultimately I'm deciding whether a case is staying in place, whether a case is going to get activated, or whether a case is going to get dismissed. And can everybody hear me okay? Do I need to get closer? I'm so
I got low volume from people in the audience.
Is this better? I'm not sure it's on. Oh, okay. Okay. I am sorry. So When it comes to domestic violence, I think it's important for everybody to understand that I'm not just prosecuting domestic batteries, I'm prosecuting domestic violence offenses. And offenses is a pretty wide umbrella because of the state statute for what defines a domestic violence offense. So it doesn't have to just be a physical act that happens from one person to another. It can be an act of violence that's threatened against another person, or some sort of property damage that's threatened at that person in an intimidating way. So these are the types of offenses that may also fall under a domestic violence offense, like an assault, a trespass, criminal damage, things like that. So it's not just domestic batteries that are being prosecuted. As far as the bond conditions go and things like that, I am very open to any questions if there's questions after this presentation, but I'll keep moving into more detail. For the prosecution office in the city of Topeka, we try to be as open to diversion as we can be, and that is because it provides me a lot of opportunities to do intervention work with these defendants who are coming in for domestic violence offenses. You are coming across a lot of individuals who may have mental health issues. They may have substance abuse issues, a combination of those things. They may have never gotten any kind of anger management classes, any kind of emotional regulation classes, things like that. So when an individual is eligible for diversion, I try to present that option as much as I can. I can't force anybody to get into diversion. It's something that they have to apply for. There are, of course, people who are not going to be eligible diversion eligible, I apologize. So as far as arraignment dates, things like that, trial docket dates, we've set up specific trial docket dates, we've set up specific arraignment dates for the domestic violence offenders, so they are handled separately from the other offenses that are being prosecuted through the city of Topeka. And of course, we have court-appointed representation for those individuals that cannot hire their own. People can hire their own attorneys if they want to. They can represent themselves if they choose to do so. And when I'm looking at things like diversion eligibility or sentencing recommendations, I'm looking at a bevy of things for individuals, their criminal history background, do they have history with the party that's involved that's alleged to be the victim, things like that. And what's really great about diversion or our sentencing recommendations is that we have been actively working with partners in the community, so the YWCA specifically and the Family Peace Initiative. Through our grant that we were awarded, that was over $400,000, we've been able to cover the costs of defendants going through things like a batter's intervention program. So I can recommend a lot more people get into that. I can also require a lot more people to attend those batter intervention programs because the financial hardship is no longer present. So if it's going to be a hardship for you, which these classes do cost money, you're paying for all the coursework and the time on top of it. If it's a financial hardship, then we have a grant that covers all of that. So I think it's just fantastic for getting in and offering that level of intervention. It's very interesting to watch a victim when you tell them that you're very interested in getting them into an intervention program, the offender, because the amount of times I've had victims be like, oh, yeah, that's great, that's what they really need. And then they're usually concerned about what's going to be the cost of that for our household, and I say, you don't even need to worry about it because we can cover it all if that's what needs to happen. And then we look at other conditions like restitution, drug and alcohol evaluations. Does somebody need to go to alternative sentencing court? We try that as well. For victim communication, we try to make this as victim-centric as we possibly can. So we don't automatically defer to everything that a victim asks for, but we try to do as much intensive communication as we can with a victim of a domestic violence offense. We try to make them as educated on the procedure as we possibly can. We are trying to communicate in different forms, whether that's through mailing out, whether that's through mailing out, trying to reach them at their address, through phone calls, things like that. Do you want to know what this procedure is? Do you want to know what sentencing recommendations are? Do you have safety concerns? Do you want to talk to a YWCA advocate? What can we do to assist you in this process? So One of the best things that we've had happen recently is getting a victim witness coordinator, because she's able to do those things immediately when a case comes in. So she's testing out phone numbers to see if they work and they reach that individual, letting them know about bond conditions, having them communicate any questions, comments, concerns to me. She's facilitating any kind of appointments that they may want to make with me, whether that's over the phone or in person, but she's really running around and going everywhere and trying to make sure everybody gets communicated with and gets that opportunity to know what is going on with this case. And then one of the more important things that she also does is facilitating that advocacy between the YWCA and a victim. So if a victim needs help with filing something like a protection from abuse order, my office can't do that. We're not allowed to. We can't go represent that individual with a PFA filing. So the YWCA is fantastic for that. They can help walk that individual through it. So those are the types of concerns that we can get that person connected with an advocate, and hopefully they can get on that road quicker than they would by themselves. And so we've also put things in place to help the referral process go quicker with the county. So if a case does need to go over the county, our referral process is such that basically some of this paperwork can be copied and pasted and moved over, and hopefully that facilitates quicker charging on the end from the county. The shaping of the City of Topeka prosecution it was largely informed by the YWCA. So I cannot emphasize how important, I can't emphasize enough how important that partnership has been to work with the YWCA, because the chief of prosecution, Kelly Trussell, she saw this coming from a mile away before we started rolling out the prosecution, that we needed to be trauma informed. We needed to know, how do we speak with victims of these offenses? How do these dynamics work? What are these relationships? What are going to be the concerns of victims? How do we get victims to work with us? And if you're not trauma informed, there's a lot that you can say that can upset, offend, and just turn that person off from seeing the opportunities of what can this intervention do for your life. So we did training with the YWCA to understand that. It was very eye-opening. It helped me avoid a lot of wording that maybe I would have put my foot in my mouth had I not known and not realized that's not what somebody wants to hear. So on top of that, we also prepped by taking a look at a different municipality that had recently, at the time, also taken on domestic violence. So I went and I toured and I looked at what they were doing, and I walked away with some really good ideas of, here's what not to do and here's what we should be doing when we finally roll this out. And so one of the things was realizing we need a separate victim room, because putting those victims out in the open in the courtroom while you're waiting for cases to go, not a good idea for many, many reasons. So we've had that separate victim room built. There are parking concerns where people are going to look for a certain person's vehicle, so we have addressed that. Witness preparation, making sure they know what the courtroom looks like. What is it going to be like when you testify? What is it going to be like when you're cross-examined? Things like that. We offer those opportunities. And again, separate dockets so that they're not mingled with traffic cases coming in, but you also have domestic violence offenses over here. They're treated separately. They're treated with the air of dignity and seriousness that they should. And so I'm always continuing my education and going to trainings that can make me understand what's a tool that I might be able to use in prosecution, what's a way that the victim's going to look at a case that I have not realized yet, things like that, and even grant opportunities that I didn't know existed. And then this is just the final note I will end on, is that prosecution of these offenses is very different from other crimes. It is not your run-of-the-mill, a simple battery where maybe a random stranger has made physical contact with you. These are often relationships that are ongoing. Individuals share children in common, things like that. So it's important to understand that these dynamics are very, very different, and so domestic violence prosecution is going to have to be treated differently than other kinds of offenses. You could be working with a victim and think you're ready to go to trial up until the day of trial, and then something then they don't want to give testimony on the day of trial, even though they've worked themselves into that mindset of, yes, I'm finally going to do it. So it's very, very different from other types of witnesses and victims that you work with. And the most important thing I would end on is these may be misdemeanor offenses that we are prosecuting here, but it does not mean that they are insignificant. Sometimes when you are looking at the criminal history of some of these individuals, when you're looking at the ongoing history between some of these parties, you realize you are just scratching the surface of a potentially very fatal situation. So I try to treat these cases with, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to comb this over, and I'm going to try to see if I'm not missing something here, because it may look like a criminal damage, but you don't know if that criminal damage in 3 weeks is going to lead to a much more serious offense. I was talking to a victim today where I learned some pretty dramatic things where now this individual has been charged in the county for even more severe crimes. So it may be misdemeanor domestic violence, but it is very, very important.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for your presentation. I do have several questions. So this $400,000 grant, about what is an estimate for when an individual goes for treatment and they utilize these grant funds? What is an estimate of how much it costs per individual, just ballpark?
So I don't want to speak and give an incorrect number, so would I be able to send a follow-up email to provide that estimate? Because I know it's weekly courses that an individual has to pay for, course books that they have to pay for, and things like that, where I would just want to send an email to the Family Peace Initiative and they could probably shoot right over whatever that amount is.
Yes, because it's important. And also, is this the first time, this is a grant that the city received, is that correct? The
That's my
$400,000?
understanding, yes.
And, yes? And is this something that we believe that there will be reapplication for? Is this per year? Does this last 2 years until the funds run out?
Deputy Mayor, we are on a 3-year grant with the Department of Justice. These are generally reoccurring funds. When you get in their system and show proven success record, you can reapply, and that would be our intent.
Okay, so thank you for that. And also, I'm wondering if the tracking, so either one of you can possibly answer this, if the tracking that we're looking at, we just recently had the Shawnee County Health Department come into Public Health and Safety Committee to talk about the social determinants of health, starting to look at how we view policy, how we view part of our role on City Council from a public health lens. So is there tracking that is specifically being done, not just to understand, possible recidivism rates or anything of that nature, but the actual climate that is, determined? You can use the protocol of the 5 social determinants of health to kind of get tracking on this, so that as a city, we will be more aware of that public health approach and how it's impacting domestic violence, or how domestic violence is impacted by these social determinants.
Yes, we can get you more specific details, but we do track how many cases come in, how many are referred, how many we do, other demographics of them, as well as the Mayor's Domestic Violence Task Force. The YWCA does extensive tracking on that, so I'll see what we have and get it to you guys.
Well, yeah, and again, it won't be just for me. This is something that as a full governing body, as the mayor, as a city manager, as a city attorney, we should all be able to know that it's being tracked, because that's just going, to make this, more valuable information. I will tell you, as an elected representative for almost 5 years now, the whole history of the complexity of domestic violence has been eye-opening to me in the district that I serve. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about complexity of relationships, and when you're talking about trauma-based, where they go oftentimes into the looping of the relationship, that it just goes on, and how the children are impacted, how the families are impacted, how the neighborhood has been impacted. Mm-hmm. It is a very deep, deep problem and crisis, and oftentimes more for women, because of the violence that they are exposed to, and the children. So again, I think that we really need to start widening our scope. Again, I'm going to push it, the public health approach, to see how we can start looking and tracking. And I think it's just, you're doing really, really good work. And I know it's probably really, really hard work, But I thank you for all you're doing. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for being here. I used to deal with diversions when I was at the county years ago, and I love to see that and during that time, we didn't do domestics at the city.
Yeah.
So I'm extremely happy to see that we're doing it, and also that we're making sure that we are very victim-focused. That piece of it right there is one that used to get lost. There was a lot of victims who thought that what their impact and what they were saying didn't come across in the charging and the decisions when it comes to diversions and whatnot. And I think that's extremely admirable that you guys are paying attention to that. You said a little bit ago, talked about the misdemeanor that domestic battery is, and more for the public, but DUIs, I know that when you do a diversion for the first one, you do a second one, that first one comes back up. Okay? So my question is, are DV cases stackable just like DUI cases?
Yes. So the way that domestic violence is handled, it's kind of interesting. If you look at it just from the way it's designed federally all the way through a municipality, is there's supposed to be this stacked severity in domestic violence and how it's treated. So just on the state level and the municipal level, when you are convicted of your first domestic battery, that is a B misdemeanor. If the facts of the case fall into a misdemeanor level of domestic battery, and then within 5 years, if you're convicted of a second, then you're on an A misdemeanor, and then third or subsequent within those 5 years of those convictions is supposed to be charged as a felony and pursued as such. When it comes to a diversion, yes, a diversion for purposes of sentencing and prosecuting, if you have had a diversion, same with a conviction within 5 years, then you are bumped up to a domestic battery second or so forth. So the thing about it is, you can say, yes, you have not been convicted before if you successfully complete a diversion, but when a prosecuting agency gets a hold of it and reviews your criminal history, then yes, you can be bumped up to a second and so on, just like a DUI.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you. So whether it's a plea or a diversion or a ruling, a lot of these do have some piece of whether we want to call therapy, anger management, mental health service. So two questions related to that. First is, do we have the capacity in this community to send these individuals? I mean, are those outlets there that or are we having any issues with finding places or individuals to help in that process?
Not so far. We haven't had a problem. If anything, the Family Peace Initiative has been very excited by us prosecuting domestic violence, because they've actually, due to the number of people we've been able to get over there for services, and because we can now cover the costs, they have opened up more group sessions in order to meet those needs. But there hasn't been one single complaint of, oh, we have too many people coming here, we cannot service these people. If anything, they've been energized, they've been excited about it, and they're seeing movement like they haven't seen before. So.
And then my second piece of that is, what is our process for following up to make sure they're actually completing that piece of whatever level it's at?
Yes, that's a good question. So we get updates on who's actually attending. They will send updates of who's attending, who's been excused, who did not get excused and just didn't attend, things like that. So if you are on a diversion or if you're on probation for it, that's going to be grounds to revoke your diversion or probation, because they're going to be able to give updates of who's attending, who's not, or if somebody's acting egregiously, they're able to report on that, because they're able to give us whatever's happening in those sessions as far as being compliant and fulfilling the conditions that was asked of them.
Great, thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions, I mean, when we started this program, if you could clarify, I know the city can only do misdemeanors, so if it's a felony, it's got to be at the county.
Yes.
Right? The county's been doing this for a long time. So when we started, was there a gap in services, or were we deciding we could do a better job?
I'll take that one, Bridget. So it came to the city because of advocates in our community that said there was a gap in services, that because of COVID backlog, homicides, other more serious on paper offenses, though county was just backlogged and couldn't charge them, and the advocates came to us and said there's a real need, and that's why cities exist, is when citizens come to you and ask for a need, you hopefully can provide it, and luckily as a governing body, you guys invested in that and allowed us to start doing that.
Further? Bridget, I want to thank you for everything that you do in that office, and I know it's an important task. I know that you collaborate, I think, as well with the Mayor's Task Force, with all of those who are involved in that effort as well, because it is a community concern, and I'm glad that the city stepped forward and took this responsibility. I know it's work, hard but important work, because it affects so many things in our community. So again, thank you for the presentation and answering the questions that we have. If anybody wants to get even more information, I would suggest they contact the city attorney or Bridget and get any more details that they might want about the program and efforts. City attorney.
You don't mind, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say the city is very lucky to have Bridget. She came to us about 2.5 years ago and has absolutely thrived in prosecution. She has undersold herself when she said she went and toured a municipality. She dug in and looked at all the things that go right and wrong and has built the program from the ground up while also getting married and having her first baby and doing all of those life things that happen at the same time. So I am very grateful we have Bridget on staff.
Thank you again, Bridget.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I want to make sure, has the consent agenda been changed, or is it as I have
I'm
printed
aware.
here?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for, thank you, Mayor, I'm going to ask for a change in the consent agenda whenever you tell me I can.
We can do it now.
You can do that now?
Now? Okay, so for the consent agenda, I'm asking that 4C be removed and voted on separately.
Okay.
That is the Topeka Hotel additional funding request.
Okay. You want that moved to an action item today?
Yes.
Or just removed entirely?
Action item today.
Okay.
The last item.
Councilwoman Hiller?
I think we can do this together. I would like to pop item 4A as well for action today, but
Let's make it L.
give us time for discussion.
Okay. Okay. Mayor, so if there's no objections, we'll make those items 5, L, and K on the agenda.
You move them to,
The last two items on the action.
okay.
Okay. So with that, item B is a resolution introduced by the city manager, Robert Perez, declaring the entire boundary of the city of Topeka for 2024. And D are the minutes of the regular meeting of December 3, 2024, and there are no applications.
Okay. You've heard the amended consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilman Miller,
Second.
second by Councilman Duncan. Call the roll, please.
Council members Miller,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Move to agenda item 5, action items. Madam Clerk?
A is approval of an operational funding agreement between the City of Topeka and the Topeka Performing Arts Center Incorporated, TPAC, for supplemental operation funding in an amount not to exceed $150,000.
Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Jason Tryon, our Deputy Director of Public Works, will lead us through this item.
So we discussed this item last week. It's a 2-year agreement between the city and the Topeka Performing Arts Center for $150,000 of supplemental funding for the next 2 years, with the option of 2 additional 2-year renewals, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Jason? Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler,
Second that motion.
second by Councilman Miller. My apologies.
Don't worry about it. I'm offended.
If you call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes, thank you, Jason.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, motion carries.
We'll move to action item 5B. Madam Clerk.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez, providing for a non-exclusive franchise to American Medical Response to operate an ambulance service within the city of Topeka until December 31, 2025, and replacing the franchise ordinance codified at City Code Appendix B, Article 11, that will expire December 31, 2024.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Randy Phillips, our fire chief, will take us through this item.
Chief?
Just as the previous item, this is one that was discussed last week. There have been no other changes, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion to approve by Councilman Banks.
Second.
Second by Councilman Kell. If you call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
All right, 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion's carried. Thank you for that detailed presentation, Chief. Action item 5C, Madam Clerk.
C is discussion with possible action of a resolution introduced by Dr. Robert Perez relating to the convening of a Citizens Government Review Committee to study and review the form of government for the city of Topeka.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Amanda Stanley, our city attorney, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. In front of you is the proposed resolution for the Citizen Government Review Committee. If you recall, we started talking about this, in the middle of the year or so, when we talked about our form of government and how it exists. And then as a reminder that we have a Citizen Review Commission every 10 years. About 2 months ago, we discussed this as a just discussion item about how do you want to go about picking these individuals, what kind of requirements should you have. At the open public meeting, there was general consensus that you wanted a job description written based off our ordinance. That was done, and then it was posted on the mayor's website asking for solicitation of nominees so that the governing body could consider them. Those nominees came in, and I believe the mayor has shared with you his recommendations. It is recommended by your city attorney that you have an alternate just in case somebody has something happen. That way you don't have somebody sub in at the last minute, and so that is in there. But these are open for discussion for you to consider these individuals to serve on the Citizen Government Review Commission.
Councilman Duncan.
I do have a question about the alternate. They're going to attend all the meetings. Are they a viewer, or do they have essentially some sort of ex officio status where they still have standing to speak and have some input, even if they don't get a final vote? Is that role been
So
discussed?
anticipating that, the ordinance is drafted that they would have full participation in the meeting, and then in the event that one of the 5 could not vote, they would have voting powers at the end, so they
Okay.
could be able to be subbed in.
Great, thank you.
So, firstly, we have the names. I don't know if the council has them on the agenda tonight.
Do.
They do? Okay.
It's on the
All right, good. So, I believe many of them are in attendance today. Is there a motion to approve? Councilwoman Hiller, motion to approve. Second? Second by Councilman Dobler. If you call the roll, please.
All right, council members Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
and Duncan.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, 10 yes. I ask if you're present, Brian Brocksterman, James Kopp, Connie Jacobson, Champagne Lloyd, Zach Surratt, and I believe Tamara Martin may not be with us. But I want to thank you for your willingness and stepping forward to serve. It's going to take a considerable amount of your personal time, but we do appreciate your willingness to serve the city in the review of our current form of government. So thank you very much. Okay, move on to 5C, action item, Madam Clerk.
D is discussion with possible action of an ordinance introduced by City Manager Robert Perez establishing a service levy fee for 2025 relating to the Capital City Downtown Business Improvement District, amending Section 340.030 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item. Please note that Jessica Moreno and Sean Dixon of ECI are present for questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, Josh, when you're ready.
Good evening, governing body. So tonight, you'll be approving 3 BIDs within the city of Topeka. Basically what a BID is, businesses pool their resources together based off the ordinance, and then they provide services the city typically doesn't provide. In downtown Topeka's case, some of the items in your pack would be promoting the district and marketing tools, general maintenance on the sidewalks, plowing snow, just general maintenance overall to keep downtown clean. So there's no changes from this agreement compared to last year, and so that's all I kind of have for this item.
Okay. Any questions? I see a motion to approve. Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller. Second by Councilman Duncan. Thank you. If you call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Hofer.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. We move to action item 5E. Madam Clerk.
E is discussion with possible action of an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez establishing a service fee levy for 2025 for the NOTO Business Improvement District, amending Section 370.030 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item. Please note that Pedro Concepcion, the NOTO Executive Director, is present for questions as well.
Thanks, City Manager. Basically the same thing as the last item, except this is a NOTO. And then some of the items that they're doing with their budget that they get through the BID are new trash cans, trash service, snow removal, and then just, basic beautification of the NOTO area.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Unless there's any questions, again, it's the same as last year. I would move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Banks. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yeah.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
And Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion carried. We move to action item 5F. Madam Clerk.
F is discussion with possible action of an ordinance introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez establishing a service fee levy for 2025 relating to the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District, amending Section 365.035 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Director, will lead us through this item. Please note that Mr. Kurt Young, Topeka Lodging Association, is also present for any questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Some of the last 2 items, this is for just the Topeka Tourism Business Improvement District. This assesses a $1 surcharge on hotel room stays, and information can be found given by Downtown Topeka in the packet, but similar to the last 2 items.
Okay. Any questions? Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller, second by Councilor Kell. If you call the roll, please.
Okay, all right. So Councilmember Valdivia Akala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
And Councilmember Hiller?
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Motion's carried. We'll move to action item 5G. Madam Clerk.
Okay, G's good, all right. G is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee amending the 2024 to 2023 CIP and the 2024 to 2026 CIB regarding the 2024 traffic signal replacement program.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. This was presented a while back at the Public Works Infrastructure Committee, and I like to present all 4 items ahead of time because they all kind of go together, and that's how we presented it to the Public Works Infrastructure Committee. So basically, we had some leftover cash in our federal fund exchanges, which were given by the state, and kind of to alleviate the bonding costs, we wanted to convert some of the previous programmatic funds that we had listed as bonding, such as the 2023 Infill Sidewalk program and the 2024 traffic signal program. Rather than being partially or fully bonded, they're going to be fully cash funded through FFE. So we're reducing our bonded costs by about $1.4 million out of those 2 projects. And then, so those are the first 2 items. And then the next 2 items are the neighborhood infrastructure. Originally in the 2024 budget, we did a cash transfer of $1.5 million to fund that project, so we didn't have to bond. However, due to some operating budgets to take some heat off the general fund for this year, we wanted to convert $750,000 of that qualifies for citywide half-cent sales tax funding in order to take some heat off the general fund budget so we can carry some more cash over into the next year. So that was the rationale behind that one. And then finally, for the 2025 CIP, we're proposing for moving the firm project from previously listed as cash back to bonds. And part of the reason we were doing this was to obviously take heat off the 2025 operating budget, but we felt comfortable by this because we moved 2 previous projects from being bonded to FFE funded, and also with the news we got about the fleet building originally being about $3.2 million, the city portion, we got news that it's $2 million. So effectively, it's about a net wash in total where our CIP originally was at the start of the year. And those were the rationale behind that. Now, just because we changed the firm program to being bonded today, that doesn't mean we can come back 6 months later now and say, hey, we want to partially cash fund that, we want to partially bond it based off future financial information that we may get, because we don't sell the bonds till later next year in about August or September. So, and I know we kind of went through all the items, but I thought it was important to give the full context of why we were doing this, and I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions? I want to check to make sure, City Attorney and Madam Clerk, we need to vote on these individually.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one up is action item 5G. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Banks. If you'll call the roll, please.
Council members Ortiz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
And Valdivia Akala?
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay. Madam Clerk, 5C, H.
H is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure Committee amending the 2024 to 2033 CIP and the 2024 to 2026 CIB regarding the 2024 Neighborhood Infrastructure Dreams 1 program.
City Manager, any additional from what Josh gave?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve 5H. Motion to approve by Councilman Banks, second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the roll, please.
Council members Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
I said yeah.
Okay. Council members Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
And Ortiz?
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Move now to 5C. Madam Clerk?
I is a resolution introduced by the Public Infrastructure
Aye.
Committee amending the 2025 to 2030 Ford CIP and the 2025 to 2027 CIB regarding the 2025 firm program.
That's action item 5I, my mistake. Any additional information, City Manager?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Kell. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. I just want to express some appreciation to the staff to go through all of these and tell you now, I'm going to vote against this one to convert what was cash to budget or to bonding. I hope we don't need to do it. If we don't need to do it now, I hope my colleagues would follow suit and vote no. Thank you.
Anything further? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Council members Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
No.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
No.
Valdivia Aquila?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
And Banks?
Yes.
All right, we have 8 yes with council members Hiller and Hofer voting no. The motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move to action item 5J. Madam Clerk?
J is a resolution introduced by the members of the Public Infrastructure Committee amending the 2023 to 2032 CIP and the 2023 to 25 CIB regarding the 2023 Infill Sidewalk Pedestrian Plan.
Okay. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh is here to stand for any questions.
Anything further from Josh after his presentation? None? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Councilman Banks.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dobler. You'll call the roll, please.
Council members Miller,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, the motion is carried. And now, we'll go back to
Yep.
the 2 items that were on the consent agenda that has been pulled
Yep.
for action item.
Right. The first one is 5K. It'll be a resolution introduced by City Manager Dr. Robert Perez regarding additional funding for operations and maintenance of Hotel Topeka in the amount of $72,343.54.
Okay. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the governing body. I'll ask Braxton Copley, our Assistant City Manager, to lead us through this discussion.
Thank you for the opportunity. We received a funding request from GF Hotels for $208,000. That's based on projections over the next couple of months. We had previous authority of $136,000, and so the delta between those is approximately $72,000. Hence, this request for operating funding is for approximately $72,000. Happy to stand for any questions that you would have. And as a reminder, under our contract, our hotel management agreement between the city and GF Hotels, we have 10 days in which to provide the funding under the agreement.
Okay. Deputy Mayor? You pulled this one.
Oh, yes, motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilman Duncan. If you call the roll, please.
Council members Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Akala?
No.
Ortiz?
No.
Banks?
No.
Kell?
Yes.
And Miller?
Yes.
All right, we have 7 yes. The motion carries with Councilmembers Valdivia Akala, Ortiz, and Banks voting no.
Okay. Move now to, I guess, action item 5L.
Yep. L is a resolution introduced by Deputy Mayor Christina Valdivia Akala, canceling governing body meetings and scheduling special meetings for calendar year 2025.
Okay. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will lead us through this item.
I would say I can help, Josh, too. Sorry, I was on consent originally. So every year we set our governing body meetings. That is key because of our governing body rules, which require that you set meetings and notify the public in advance if we're going to cancel certain meetings due to days like election, or if we need to reschedule any meetings. The resolution in front of you would cancel the regularly scheduled meetings August 5th because it's primary day, November 4th for general election, and November 11th because that's Veterans Holiday. If you recall, about 3 years ago, they changed our state budget law with the implementation of the revenue neutral rate. That means we have certain requirements that we have to meet at certain times of the year. So for example, this year, July 20th was the last day to notify the county of our intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, and then we have set timelines that we have to meet. Because of that, our budget department has found that we generally need to have a meeting in July, and so to account for the various meetings we canceled, this resolution will also add that, and I will let Josh tag team in on any other meetings that we think need to be handled.
Yeah, so this last year, if we wanted to cancel July meetings, there's 3 meetings in July, but we have to submit our maximum mill levy rate to the county by July 20th. So I think it's important to have those meetings, at least a couple meetings in July before, that way there's public consumption on it before submitting to the county, because we also get our valuations June 15th, so that's a quick turnaround time if there's not any meeting schedules available between then. We also have to let them know on that July 20th date if we can exceed the revenue neutral rate or not. And then, so it's very important to have those meetings in July and then early August.
Okay. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked to have it pulled only because we typically put some extra meetings in each year for budget, to work on the budget. We don't always, I'm not sure we've ever set them in January, but we are going to need them. Sometimes we've had them on Saturday mornings, sometimes we've added an extra Tuesday evening to fill out the month. What caught my attention when this came out is that, well, thinking back, we've had people who had scheduled vacations who ended up having to call in for some of these meetings from very far away because they already scheduled vacations. So of course we want to avoid that. The deal is, if we do schedule for June 24th and for August 26th, that would mean that the only 2 weeks out of the summer that any of us on the council could schedule a 1-week vacation without missing a council meeting would be the end of July. And so I just want to make sure people realize that before we voted these 2 extra meetings in this far in advance.
Okay. Councilman Duncan.
I guess, yeah, my question is the June 24th meeting basically our extra July meeting? Is that the thought process there? Because we have 3 meetings in July, all before the 20th.
I'll let Josh speak to those dates.
I think that might have got, yeah, I don't know why June 24th was on there. That's probably on me. We can, because at that time, we wouldn't get valuations from the county until probably July 16th, that date. So I think we kind of threw June 24th as a tentative date if we needed to move in case the July 4th holiday. But I'm okay with the June 24th date being removed, if need be.
Councilman Dobler.
I might have missed this, you might have said it, but what are the 2 November meetings on Wednesdays? The 5th and the 12th?
I think so.
Election day, Veterans Day.
Which we've never done.
Special meeting.
Yeah.
city clerk has comments.
Yeah. So the November meetings, we have, of course, you know, we have to have 2 a month. So one of them falls on an election day and one falls on a holiday. So that would only leave us 1 meeting in November. So we would have to schedule a special meeting anyway. So in our code, it allows us to schedule like the very next day. So making the assumption we'll have 3 meetings in November. 2 of them will be on Wednesday.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
It's a Tuesday.
It's the 11th, it's a Tuesday.
Tuesday next year.
I have it pulled up.
Gotcha.
So I guess I will make a motion to remove June 24th from the, whatever this is called, from the list of dates. Thank you. Couldn't think of it.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Motion from Councilman Duncan, second by Councilman Kell. If you call the roll, please.
Do we want to remove the date and approve as amended? Okay.
Sure, let's do that.
What do you say?
What the clerk said.
But we do need to catch those
Councilmembers
Wednesdays.
Duncan?
Yes.
Hofer?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Akala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
And Dobler.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, the motion carries.
My calendar already.
And motion's carried. Thank you for bringing those to our attention. We'll move on now to the non-action items. Madam Clerk?
A is discussion of the proposed amendments to the 2024 operating budget.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. Josh McInerney, our Budget and Finance Division Director, will take us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. So tonight, we will be having discussion on some budget amendments for possible action next week. Kind of how a budget amendment works is each year, by October 1st, we have to submit our budget to the state for our various amount of fund, or our various funds. So what the council does each year is they set a top line budget limit. So let's say $1 million, and then if we happen to be a year from then, a couple $100,000 over, we have to come back to council for an amendment on why that increase and get their approval. And so a couple, I'll just kind of go through the list for tonight. Some of these, it's not any new expenditures, it's just simply, they're pass-through funds. So I'll start with the Topeka Metro is, we get their property tax collections, they have a mill rate of 4.2, and then we get their revenue from the county, and then we pass it off to them. So the reason you have to amend this budget is we collected more in property taxes for them than what was budgeted, and so therefore we're expensing more than what we had listed in our state budget form. So that's the amendment reason for the Metro. The next one is the federal funds exchange. So with the passage of the recent CIP resolutions you had, we only listed as we were going to transfer out $3.7 million into projects from our FFE fund for 24. Now we're reneging that, and it's going to be $3.95 million. Now there is plenty of money in the fund to support that, which is why we had those CIP changes in the first place. So that's the reason for that one. And then I'll kind of handle these next two in tandem for TIFs and CIDs. As we reviewed last week, the developers in these two economic development tools get a portion of our funds. And then what we had listed in the budget was probably too low the previous year, to where that increment for a TIF, for example, is we're expensing that out to the developer at a higher rate than what was anticipated, which is probably a good thing that the property tax value on a TIF is growing up, because that was the whole intent in the first place. So that is the same thing for a CID, and so that's why those two funds that would need a budget amendment. Now, the next two are for department funds, and we have the department contacts here tonight, but I'll just kindly briefly read through them. The first one is the IT fund, and so due to a couple of unforeseen circumstances on some projects, we're asking to increase the budget authority by $500,000 for 2024 budget cycle. A couple of softwares we had to do because there were some systems and licensing being offline, so we had to make those expenses rather than have loss of business continuity. And then for the utilities fund, there was a cold event in early January, and then we are expected to get reimbursement from FEMA. But due to that expense happening and us paying for it, we technically are over the budget authority that was listed in the state form. So that's why we're coming back here at a due diligence, even though we're anticipating to get money on the back end later down the line. And those are the 2024 budget amendments.
Questions for Josh? Councilman Duncan.
It's not the question for Josh. He already answered my questions, and I appreciate that because I mentioned last week a few things popped out of me. But I guess this is just for my colleagues' edification here. It's things you learn. One of these expenses is related to damages from other entities. Now, we have to pay those up front because those bills have to be paid. But the question I then asked is, why are we paying those if others are creating the damage? Right? Those contractors should be paying those expenses. They should have insurance. It should be built in. The response was obviously we need to pay those first, and then it's a choice on our part as to whether we're going to then follow up with those. And it's my understanding that we have a sort of a spotty record of doing that. We've sort of made choices like, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I think there's various reasons for that. We, quote unquote, don't want to harm relationships with vendors, that type of thing. I guess as I heard that, all my frustration was they build that into the cost of doing business. That's why they all carry insurance. And we don't want the reputation with certain contractors, if you break it, it's fine, the city will take care of it. And I'm not saying that's a widespread issue with all the contractors. I'm not throwing them all under the bus. But in learning that was information that I hope, city manager, that our policy moving forward is, things happen, we understand it, but the taxpayer shouldn't pay when an outside contractor does that damage. We need to follow up with them to make sure that we're getting reimbursement for that. Because again, it's built into their business model, right? So that was all. I just want to make that comment. I don't think it's a widespread problem, but I wanted to, like I said, things you learn. So thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, absolutely, Councilman. You're right. It's exactly why they have insurance. It's exactly why they have bonds. And I mean, if that was the case in the past, that it was kind of hit or miss. I want us to hit all the time. Okay. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We've had some discussion about that, and I think it's important for us to follow through and be consistent in making sure that we don't pick up the tab for somebody else's mistakes. Councilman Miller.
Well, with that discussion, is there a reason to leave this in this budget amendment?
Well, I think as explained to me, which I do understand, is those bills still have to be paid. So it could, I'm going to make something up, but it could take us 90 or 120 days to get reimbursement from that. But the bill we need to pay still needs to be paid within 30 to the full length of the project or the repairs we have to make in the short term. So we have to absorb that cost up front to make sure the work gets completed or the damage is repaired immediately so the project can be completed. So reimbursement could take time. So we pay it and then we're supposed to get reimbursed later.
Well, why wouldn't they pay it up front and wait to get reimbursed?
Because, and I'll let staff, but if it's an insurance claim,
right?
I mean, if anyone has an insurance policy that pays off really quick, raise your hand, because I have yet to. So I'm sure it's only worse in the contract world. So I understood their explanation for why we've got to pay it up front. I just want to make sure we're doing the follow through on the back end to get the reimbursement eventually. Yeah.
Okay. We should leave it in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, put this in a nutshell. Most of these items are due to higher than anticipated revenue and our need to increase the budget so we can spend that revenue. Topeka Transit, the CIDs, the TIP, so on. It's not like we've overspent our budget and now we need to increase it. It's the ability to use the excess revenue. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would have to look at like the state law. I probably didn't have to bring these to you, but I think out of due diligence, it was important to. And I think it's good, kind of like we talked about last Friday, if our TIFs are collecting higher money and we're expensing out, I think that's the purpose of a TIF. So I think it's a good thing to disclose to the body. So it's not a new expense, you're correct.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anything further for Josh? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to non-action item 6B. Madam Clerk.
B is discussion concerning the common consumption area, amending the downtown encompassing area to include the Topeka Performing Arts Center, TPAC.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the governing body. I would ask Councilmember Duncan and City Attorney Stanley to help lead us through this item.
Thank you, City Manager. So Topeka Performing Arts Center came to us and said, hey, we got this nice, great common consumption area that's been working really wonderfully for the last 6 months, but they stop right before they get to walk in front of TPAC. So if they're out for dinner and they want to bring it down, we'd like them to be able to at least bring it in front of our building. Plus, if they choose to have any events, say out in the street or outside, when they get the other permits, it makes that easier. We had no issue with that. In fact, our debate wasn't whether we should or shouldn't on the Policy and Finance Committee. It was, what is the scope of the area as we're doing it? One of the ideas was just to make it down 8th Street and not include all the way to 4th, right? Back to 4th. But as we talked about that, we thought that would make it very confusing for people if you're coming from 4th or 5th or 6th and not realize you can't walk down one more street over and then over. The only properties in that area are basically government buildings, City Hall, the courts, and then there is one gas station, service station over there. We talked with the county because we wanted to make sure if we were going to do this, they were okay with us just encompassing it all from 4th to 8th. They had no issues with that. Just as the current consumption area rules are, just because you can bring it out front of the building doesn't mean you can bring it in the building, so they still can't bring it in the courthouse. This would include in front of our own chambers. Doesn't mean they're going to get, security's going to let them bring it into the building, into the council chambers. They'll still have to consume it outside. TPAC will be able to set its own rules as to whether they want people to bring it in or not. But we just decided made it easier, one, to enforce, and two, for people to understand that they could walk all that way if they were walking over from somewhere instead of just cutting out this weird one street. So that is what Council Members Hofer, Miller, and myself said we were okay with, and that is the map I believe you have in front of you tonight for consideration to just expand our common consumption area. And in terms of signage, we think that's a pretty easy fix, just repainting stuff on the ground and moving it over a little bit. And some other signage we did discuss, making sure it's well signed like the other areas. So that's it, and obviously we're open to any questions anyone has.
Okay, Councilman Kell.
Have we done anything for receptacles, trash receptacles on the street, so we're not just having broken bottles and cans? I'm all for this, but I'm just trying to think long term that, it's easy on Kansas Avenue where there's plenty of stuff like that to throw stuff away, but once we start expanding the area a little bit, you're running into less and less options.
I think that's a worthwhile thing to ask both DTI, who's pushed this pretty hard and does some of that work, and then also our city staff to take a look at. I will say cans and bottles aren't allowed under the common consumption law set up by the state. It has to be a cup. That's still trash, so I'm not discounting stuff. But it does have to be a cup that's marked from where you purchased it. So you're not allowed. If someone is taking cans or bottles out, they're in trouble.
I thought we agreed they could put stickers or something on there.
Not yet, no. And that's state law. That's a state law. We can't fix that. We can go back to the state and fix it. But either way, your point of just making sure there's trash receptacles is a good one, and I think that's something TPAC too can probably look at. Especially our city buildings, we definitely could make sure I know City Hall obviously already has them in the court, but I think that's a legit question for ask both DTI.
Like the parking lot out there, just in between us and the county, would be a good spot to look at also, just.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, that's the last of our non-action items. We'll move to public comment. One person signed up, Jennifer Walker.
Can I stand?
Yes, ma'am. Just
Okay.
use that microphone there.
All right. Should I press go?
No, the clerk will take care of it.
Okay. All right. Dear Council, I am here tonight to speak to you about two separate but related issues that have been brought to my attention and which should be addressed by the council in order to justly serve the people of the city of Topeka. These twofold concerns are pertaining to the subject of parking, specifically parking meters. In early October of this year, I was attending a court date at City Hall. As usual, I gathered my quarters and dimes to pay my meter. However, upon arrival, I found myself in a state of confusion as to which parking meter I was supposed to pay. This is because the paired parking meters at the lot are not placed directly on the dividing lines between the parking spaces. as one might expect them to be. Instead, they are placed to the side by approximately 1.5 feet. Furthermore, neither of these meters have directional arrows to indicate which meter is to go to which parking spot, something that would have easily and quickly solved my confusion. When I appealed to the parking department, I was unfortunately too late to receive a pardon. For this, I accepted responsibility and I paid my ticket in full. However, I consider the proper maintaining of the parking meters to be the responsibility of the parking department. When I implored them that their meters were not properly maintained, they referred me to the guidelines set forth by the city council, which outlines how the parking meters are to be maintained. This is the first reason I am here, to request that the guidelines be revised to include crucial aspects of proper meter placement and directional notations. Currently, the wording is not specific about where double meters must be placed, and there is nothing said about the need for indication arrows pointing to the spots for each meter. Therefore, I am asking on behalf of the citizens of Topeka that the council revise its wording to include these specific details. I will now turn to my second concern, which is the issue I have with the parking department's intention to get rid of the meters entirely and to turn to an all-digital system of payment. While the digital system may be a great option for some, to others it is an inconvenience, and to still others yet, an impossibility. Believe it or not everybody has a smartphone. It would be unfair and unjust for the option to pay using coins to be removed entirely. The people of Topeka deserve to have the option to pay for parking in the manner they choose, or in some cases, the only manner they have. The removal of parking meters and a move to all digital payments for parking places some of the people and families who are most struggling financially in our city at a greater risk of financial burden. Some would have no choice but to park where they need to, receive a ticket, which compounds with hefty late fees when they cannot pay it quickly enough, and which is then sent to collections to be garnished from their already financially strapped wages. While I myself struggle financially, I was able to pay my ticket in time. However, my heart is hurting for those less fortunate individuals who are working paycheck to paycheck, day in and day out, trying to get back on their feet. Please, council, do not remove the parking meters. And please, revise the guidelines on how the properly maintained parking meters directly on the dividing line between the spaces and with arrows to avoid confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hey, no other persons are signed up for public comment. We'll move to the announcements. Madam Clerk.
For the December 17th governing body meeting agenda, we will have 3 appointments. We'll have 2 presentations, one on winter operations update and the other one on the B grant update. We'll have 1 professional consulting contract on the consent agenda. Action items include a public hearing and appropriation ordinance on the 2024 budget amendments, public hearing and ordinance on a vacation, a resolution for the Auburn-Washburn annexation, a final plat for KDOT District Number 1, subdivision, a resolution for public infrastructure projects for the 2025 firm projects, labor agreement for AFT Kansas Local 6406, labor agreement for ASME Water Division, an ordinance for common consumption area amendment for TPAC, an ordinance authorizing the signing of certain contracts, and then a resolution for Lawrence Bay Special Assessment Forgiveness Extension.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make note of the miracle on Kansas Avenue parade. I got to had the honor of serving as the Grand Marshal this past weekend, and just wanted to say it was a blast seeing the city of Topeka come together the way it did. I do need to put a shout out to Lindy, Bonnie, and Vicky from the city attorney's office, who walked the entire route with me. I was telling some folks that The next day in church, when I was standing up, my thighs were burning, and I was cramping up that night as well. But in addition to these exceptional women, I also wanted to put a shout out to our PD, fire, and public works folks who kept the area safe and kept it blocked off. And again, just wanted to highlight that I thought it was a great event. And so just thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
If I may add, my own executive assistant, Jane Murray, and her husband walked the whole route as well. And they bought twice as much candy this year and still ran out. But I appreciate their work and their effort in doing so. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick thing. The last couple weeks, as I've had my various open office hours and had some constituent meetings, I really just want to thank the constituents who come forward with constructive ideas. It's fine when you have complaints and concerns. That's what we're here for, and those are oftentimes legitimate too. But it's helpful when you come forward and say, hey, I've got an actual idea, and maybe you could put it in place. And some of those ideas have actually been very good, and I'll probably bring them to this council in the coming months, because that's what these conversations are for. As I tell people all the time, we don't have all the answers. That's why this city effort is a collective. But so I just want to thank those who take the time to put sometimes very detailed plans together and write things up and come up with full constructive plans and take the time to then submit those to us, because they are helpful, they are useful, we do listen, and sometimes they do become ordinances and laws and policies that we put in place. So I've had a lot of those constructive conversations over the last couple of weeks, so I just want to thank all those folks who put that time and effort in. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Hofer.
I will start time here again. Last week, we graduated.
Thank you. We graduated 16 from the Police Training Academy, so I want to let you know who all graduated. Angel, Gary Torres, Anthony Blake, Brandon Tinoco, Brenna Mulligan, Caden Meredith, Crystal Featherly, Ethan Schultz, Gavin Berberick, Hunter Shercock, I think, Isaac Brobst, Jesus Zapata Valadez, I'm not good on some of these, Juan Puentes, Matthew Drippy, Matthew Seastrom, Yusuf Lopez, and we had one who's actually a member of the fire department, but he's an investigator, so he also had to go through the academy. So also congratulations to Jacob French. And I will say it was a very well-attended event, and the mayor spoke. It's always humbling to go to these, to see somebody who's willing to step up and become a police officer. And I wish them all a long, healthy, and happy career. And that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the fact that you and Councilman Duncan were there to, and Kel, that's right. I couldn't forget the ball cap. And Kel were there to thank those who had graduated from the academy. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I had it on my calendar to be there, but I don't know. I think most of us have had as many as 2 and 3 things at the same time the last few weeks. It's been a busy time, and so I'm glad we were represented. Just wanted to comment that really the Miracle on Kansas Avenue was phenomenal. It was probably eight people deep, all up and down both sides of the sidewalk on Kansas Avenue. The cookie walk apparently ran out of cookies the night before, long before the first Friday ended. Chocolate Nutcracker was packed and phenomenal. And just wanted to give you a little tip that if you get asked to be Grand Marshal again, tell them to get you a cool ride.
I did.
Oh, you said you walked it.
I did.
No, they can get you a cool car. Thank you. They tricked you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much, just wanted to send a reminder for those that feel its importance is December 12th is the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. The feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe is probably one of the most celebrated days in Mexico. and it's definitely celebrated in Mexican and Mexican-American communities across the United States. And it's a huge, huge celebration, from family homes to churches to event centers. And if anybody wants to look it up, it's a fascinating history and part of the legacy of Mexican culture that transcends borders, that transcends nations even, because there's never been a Mexican or Mexican-American that I've known of that doesn't have some understanding and knowledge of the history of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Many of us of Mexican-American and Mexican heritage are also indigenous, so the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe was actually on the land where Tonantzin, Coatlicue, which were indigenous goddesses, where often ceremonies were held, and it was one of the vast and most important apparitions in Mexico's history, and maybe even in the world, that ended up helping conversion of millions and millions of indigenous people of Mexico. I grew up with Our Lady of Guadalupe, saying the rosary to her, singing Las Mañanitas at 5 or 5:30 in the morning at Our Lady of Guadalupe church, and the vast amount of roses that are given to her. If anyone has not been to Our Lady of Guadalupe church, you really should go and see, because there is a mosaic that probably is one of the largest, most pristine, most beautiful in the United States. So again, just that wonderful and beautiful feast day is coming up on December 12th. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too attended the parade, and it was 2 hours, and it was really neat. I really enjoyed it. The only other announcement I have is there's 3 more days, and my grandson will be walking across the stage, and I'm looking forward to that. So there's a lot of kids that'll be graduating at semester, and he will be one of them. I'm not going to acknowledge the gun that I put behind his back, but you got to do what you got to do to get those kids across the stage and on their way. I hope my attorney doesn't text me, but that's all I got to say.
That's plenty. Thank you very much.
I think she's the only one that get away from saying that.
Councilman Banks.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Kell.
Just want to acknowledge the police graduation. That was a great event. It reminded me kind of almost of my graduation from boot camp. The pride of no longer being a recruit, of being a trainee in that aspect, and being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it every second. But the pride that they had in their faces, and the pride of the family members that were there to see their family member and friend graduate. And I know Small Business Saturday was this past month, at the end of the month of November. But just remember all the small businesses here in town when you're out Christmas shopping. We have a lot of great small businesses throughout the city. And just look at those as options to buy from for Christmas gifts and help support those business owners in the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Miller, I don't know if you're still listening in. Okay. Councilman Dolbert.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, again, reiterate what the city manager said about the parade and the number of people who attended. I mean, we got so lucky with the weather. It was crazy to see so many people out there. And the number of children that were out there was just amazing. And they were so excited to be out and I think enjoying everything that was taking place downtown. And it's a good observation by Councilman Kell. It generated a lot of business downtown that night as well. The restaurants were full, and a lot of other businesses were getting visited by all of those people who went down for the parade. Keep that going. Keep giving our small businesses your attention, give them the opportunity to meet your needs during this season and throughout the year. I also want to thank the Human Relations Commission. I was unable to attend, but I saw Councilwoman Hiller there. They held their, I think, the second year in a row, Posada, and that's a great opportunity for people to come together from a variety of religions, ethnicities, backgrounds, just to celebrate the season and have some fellowship there. So I applaud the commission for being active and participating in the community. I think that they've shown that it was a good thing that we kept them active and kept them in the loop for the things that are happening in our community. There is also a need for 2 executives. Oh, City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one quick announcement, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure,
Just
please.
indulge me. Thank you. I do want to introduce to the public and to the rest of the governing body our new Public Works Director, Steve Groen. Steve's joining us from, is it South Dakota? South Dakota, and also spent some time in Minnesota. I will announce that he is a Vikings fan. And we'll not hold that against him. I did let him know, yeah. So yeah, but I just want to take this opportunity to introduce Steve as well.
Well, welcome to Topeka. Thank you, sir.
Better than the Cowboys fan.
Yeah, you came to the south for warmer climates, huh? Yeah. Okay, there is a need for 2 executive sessions. City Attorney, please.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations related to one or more unions as justified by KSA 754319B3. The meeting will resume in the governing body chambers. The following staff may be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Manager Perez and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, heard the need for our first executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn into executive session by Councilman Kell, second by Councilman Banks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I will ask that we get a 10-minute break before we recess into executive session. But we keep it at 10 minutes. Come on, keep us moving.
Dinner.
Pardon? Okay. We have concluded our discussions under our first executive session. No action has been taken. There is a need for a second executive session. City Attorney.
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss one or more matters involving contract negotiations deemed privileged under the attorney-client privilege as allowed under KSA 754319B2. The open meeting will resume in the governing body chambers. The following staff will be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Attorney Stanley and other staff the governing body finds useful.
Okay. Heard the need for a second executive session. Is there a motion to move into session?
Motion.
Motion from the Deputy Mayor to go into session with the second by Councilman Dobler. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we immediately go into our second executive session.
You've raised the bar, Sal.
Okay, we've concluded our discussions in our second executive session. No action has been taken. No further business comes before this body. The meeting is adjourned.